unique antiques, their expert team removes years of rust and weathering, then finishes each piece with a lasting powder coat. Trusted by industries across the region, now local homeowners and businesses can experience the same professional care. Visit KaiserBlasting.com or call 402-421-3559 to request your quote. Restore, protect, and make your metal shine like never before with the help of Kaiser Blasting and Coatings.
Gaina Trucking is hiring CDL Class A and B drivers. Their strong team culture makes it not a job, but a career. Gaina Trucking offers health, vision, and dental insurance, 401k with company match, an employee assistance program, and other bonus programs. Build a better career today with great team culture at Gaina Trucking. Learn more and apply today at GainaTrucking.com.
At Valentino's, we're on a mission for tradition. On every slice, for every bite. Golden baked crust, cooked to perfection every time. Savory sweet sauce that's made from our own secret recipe. Loaded with the perfect amount of fresh toppings and melty mozzarella cheese. It's the tradition that Nebraskans have come to love. From game day to every day. Valentino's. Taste the tradition.
Give your furnace a break with the help of Heartland of Nebraska Windows. Heartland of Nebraska Windows offers a free estimate, full window replacements, all vinyl triple pane windows, and a lifetime warranty of everything, while still keeping their prices affordable. Sounds too good to be true, right? Heartland of Nebraska Windows is locally and family owned with their own team of installers. Give the window experts at Heartland of Nebraska Windows a call today at 402-430-3852 or visit them online at heartlandofnebraskawindows.com. Elevate your home or business with the help of Heartland of Nebraska Windows today.
A1 Automotive's second location is now open at 5110 State Hill Drive, just off of Yankee Hill Road. The new location continues to specialize in all makes and models and provides personalized service as they have for 15 years. With the school year here, A1 Automotive reminds you that college students get 10% off any service, and they offer free tire repair with a valid college ID. Schedule your appointment today at a1autolincoln.com and visit their new location in South Lincoln at 5110 State Hill Drive or downtown at 11th and L.
This isn't any regular heat. This is nuclear heat. Live from the 93.7 The Ticket studios in the heart of Lincoln, America. Bringing you the latest from the Square Circle on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Here is your host, Jake Bockoven.
Absolutely, and happy to be with you here on a Sunday night to talk some wrestling. If you are looking for Ricky C. Simmons, do not be afraid. He will be back next week. He had some traveling to do, so he will be back in his normal time slot from 8 to 9 next week. But for this week, it allows Nuclear Heat to jump up an hour and talk some pro wrestling a little bit early here at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night. I'm Jake Bockoven alongside my tag team partner, Nuclear Heat contributor, Augie Pena. Augie, how's it going today?
Oh, it's going great. Great week of wrestling. A lot happened. Great football. It's the best time of the year right now, I just say.
That's right. Football definitely helps in that conversation. And the wrestling has been pretty good. There's quite a bit of storylines, some exciting stuff ahead to kind of look forward to. But of course, everybody, it's that first day, and I just kind of been talking to everybody about it. Everybody's on their phone checking their fantasy team. You kind of just get back into the swing of Sunday being taken over by how your fantasy team's up by 20 points at one point, then down by 30. And then, so you just kind of have to go through that wave. I wonder if they could ever do a fantasy wrestling team at some point. That'd be kind of tough. You might want to get Tiffany Stratton undefeated on the year on the team.
Yeah, that'd be a little rough. It's scripted, right? So that'd be a little, they could kind of rig it in one way. So yeah, that'd be fun, but it'd be, like how long a match lasts, how many, how many cells, things like that, finish attempts, kickouts. That could be pretty fun.
That'd be interesting too. Obviously, you'd just be so interested in the booking. It'd be like, well, because usually a lot of times, let's say 70% of the time you can tell who's going to win based on the booking. I mean, it's nice to get those surprises, but usually there's generally a pretty good idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, and you just always book that Sami Zayn is always going to be in the main event. A Judgment Day segment, division. You pretty much got, those guys, that always main event. The ending's going to be a tag team that's going to end in a disqualification.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think we got it pretty down.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of interesting because this week they did, and of course we will look back at SmackDown and Raw. Raw was from France, which was was incredible. All these overseas audiences are always really good. And then the SmackDown, which was in Chicago, which was also interesting, but is that John Cena was trying to convince everybody like Chicago's the best crowd. And again, it is one of the best domestic crowds, but just arguing that after seeing overseas crowds, it's always like, yeah, but I don't know. That France crowd might have been just as good.
Yeah, and what was it last year? The France crowd that just blew everybody's mind. This year I thought they were good, but during the premium live event, I noticed there was a lot of times where there was a lot of silence, and that's not there. But yeah, Monday night, they were back into it full swing. In Chicago, I thought did a good job, but I was expecting louder pops. First, I was expecting like my TV to just burst. With how the returns we got and things in there, and I watched it and I was like, okay, that was good, but I kind of like blow the roof off and everything, and we didn't get that in Chicago.
Yeah, not quite. It's kind of interesting to go through, and again, in defense of the Paris crew or the French crew, this time around, Clash in Paris and even Monday Night Raw did not live up to SmackDown.
Yeah,
SmackDown was maybe one of the best SmackDowns I've seen in a long time. I mean, keep in mind, this is a program that it sometimes was pre-recorded and certainly the B show. So SmackDown's kind of gone through its up and down. Certainly kind of became the A show when Fox jumped on, and then kind of back into its spot once Netflix came around for Raw. So it's kind of interesting to look at it over the years. But this week's SmackDown was about as good as it's ever been.
Yeah, it was. So it was as good as it's been. But the reason it was as good as it's been are Raw wrestlers. I feel like it almost feels like that was like, yes, one of the best SmackDowns we're going to get because those storylines are going to be going to Raw. And so now SmackDown will kind of go back down to being, what is it? The Andrade show, things like that. But yeah, no, this was, I was glued. I was waiting, there was one I didn't really expect. And then two, obviously, the main event that everybody was glued to their TV because one, it better be AJ Lee. Two, if it wasn't AJ Lee, I think people were going to legitly stop watching WWE, and we all I think got what we wanted.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's all interesting to break down. We'll do it as the segments come this time around because I think there are a lot of strong talking points, but nothing too overwhelming as far as like the dominant story. Again, I mean, the AJ Lee and Brock Lesnar are kind of the dominant stories coming out of SmackDown. But again, those we can review when we come upon them. WrestlePalooza, the next big match here, or excuse me, a premium live event, which is actually just on ESPN. But they debut on ESPN coming up around the corner. Their next premium live event, if you will, certainly has some interesting booking so far that I think is going to make a pretty darn entertaining time, and the right way to do it if you're kind of introducing the ESPN audience back into wrestling. So we'll get into that as well, but let's go ahead and start off with our Monday Night Raw preview. We can get to SmackDown here in just a bit because part of Raw was setting up SmackDown, specifically as we opened up Raw. CM Punk was waiting at the entrance, supposedly the only entrance in the building, which is tough to believe, for Rollins to get out of there coming out of Clash of Paris. And this was, of course, the Raw after Clash of Paris, so really kind of got into it. Jey Uso opened up as far as the in-ring action, called out the Vision. He wanted to see Rollins. He wants to get his hands on those guys as well. But LA Knight comes out to start kind of beefing with Jey, said it was Jey's fault that they lost, him and LA Knight. But Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed come out to challenge Uso and Knight to a tag match for the main event. And we've kind of made our feelings pretty obvious about these type of deals. I mean, it's a fun enough match in Paris. It's a fun enough match, in France, and in a live match. But it kind of sets the tone for what the night's going to be, right? I mean, is if that's your peak, if your main event is going to be somewhat recycled, ongoing feud, but somewhat recycled and not maybe the main players in the feud, kind of toned it down a little bit, I thought.
Yeah, it really did. And, I'm a big LA Knight fan. I I enjoy any time he can be in a storyline here. But yeah, we thought when Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker attached themselves to Seth Rollins, it would kind of elevate them, right? And anytime you're in a main event, I think it does. But yeah, it's like it's always those two kind of doing the dirty work, taking the pins, getting disqualification, something like that. There's not really I guess there is kind of builds to it, but not in a sense to, everybody kind of wants Rollins, but they have to go through, the B-boys. And it just, I don't know. Like you said, we've seen this, I think, like 4 or 5 times now. It really reminds me of, when it was Sammy, Cody, Kevin Owens, the Judgment Day, just those recycled every main event there. So, while I do like most of the players that were in it, it's like you said, we've just kind of seen it way too many times, and still kind of pushing Jey Uso in a point to the main event. Just, I don't know if that makes sense at this moment.
Yeah, it's interesting what they kind of did at the end of this. Jey Uso certainly still gets the crowd reaction for his entrance and all that. And so I thought it was a fine enough way to start. It just kind of was like, all right. And then you usually have to have some meaning behind these matches, right? And so, okay, who's going to win this? What's it going to necessarily mean? Again, we saw by the end of the night, I'm not sure if the payoff was as good either. I mean, to be quite frank this week, I don't think Monday Night Raw was as hot as it's been in several weeks. I mean, it looked like, as we've talked about throughout this, WWE has signed all these different deals with all these different companies that got to feed a lot of folks. As far as Monday Night Raw being on Netflix, this may have been close to the worst one. Not that it was awful. There was some interesting enough programming throughout it, but it just didn't move a whole lot of storylines forward. So we could kind of get back to that match by the end as we go on through this here. Again, this is Nuclear Heat here on 93.7 The Ticket. Looking back at this week's action in the WWE. From there, we saw a backstage segment. Io Sky told she was not needed for help backstage from Asuka in the Kabuki Warriors. They were going to go ahead and take on the Judgment Day. So it was Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez against Asuka and Kairi Sane. Good action in this match. Frequent tags, so everybody kind of got a piece of each other. So I thought that was kind of fun. And I really do think, both these tag teams are some of the best at using what they have, like Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne, for the size difference that they have to kind of starts to kind of flow well in a way that Liz and Raquel did. So it's already kind of working there. And then Asuka and Kairi Sane obviously work well together, though. Kairi Sane still, she's so small. I just can never get out of my mind. I went to a live show and saw Kairi Sane, and what you'll hear is the mat thumping, just kind of make it loud, make it sound like it's, they're taking bigger hits. And when Kairi flies off the top rope, you barely hear anything.
Yeah.
But of course, her flying elbow is over and is seen as devastating. And so that played into this. She ended up hitting the flying elbow on Raquel Rodriguez from outside the ring. Asuka finished up Roxanne Perez with an Asuka look. Looked like she kind of was struggling to get whatever else that she necessarily needed, was trying for. So she went to the Asuka look. Very, very rare. Asuka, obviously a great professional, but ultimately decide to give the win to the Kabuki Warriors and in a clean win here. Yeah. What was your kind of thoughts on the booking decision there?
Yeah, it makes sense because they're trying to really push the storyline of what we kind of see, the Asuka and Io Sky feud, which I guess I'm kind of interested in, but at the same time, yes, they need to build it a little bit more. Asuka was gone for like a year, and Io's still one of the top stars, so I understand that. But on the other side, you're essentially giving the loss to the Judgment Day, who were just the women's tag team champion. You kind of got that storyline of Liv Morgan hanging around. They're still one of the top factions. So it makes sense, but this is one of those times I maybe would have protected both teams, and had it a non-disqualification instead of just a clean win by one team.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting with the Judgment Day, the current iteration, of course, of that tag team. I think they can afford this loss pretty well. Because they kind of went back and forth. Obviously, with two of the top names in wrestling, they didn't end up keep retaining their titles. As you'll see, as Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair ended up, winning that away from them. But it's one of those kind of getting over without going over type things again, just to kind of get the rub of working with them. I thought kind of made it all good. And then they've won some singles victories here recently. So I don't think the loss hurts them too much. And like you said, it kind of moves along the Asuka and Kairi Sane feud. Here's a pretty good question though. Does the Asuka Io Sky, or excuse me, which was what I meant to say, I said Kairi Sane. Does Asuka and Io Sky need to have a belt behind it, or do you think that it's interesting enough without it? Because at WrestlePalooza, we're going to see Io Sky and Stephanie Vaquero face off for the Women's World Championship. You think there needs to be you've already got a built-in feud basically with Asuka and Io Sky, and it's one that I had argued they probably should have done already months ago.
Yeah.
But they can do it whenever, right? Is because it's just kind of locked in there from the Damage Control days. Stephanie, I don't know if there's necessarily anything next, but again, that can help her side to winning the belt to say, well, put a belt on it.
Yeah.
Then you got interest for months and miles and whatever you want to do with it. So as I'm kind of breaking that down and looking at who's going to win that match, I think the approaching feud with Asuka might cost Io Sky the belt.
Yeah. I don't think it necessarily needs a belt behind it because we'll be honest. I think it would be nice seeing Io as a champ again. I think that was a fun run. But do we really want to see, the possibility of Asuka's champ? And I think I don't know, because some of these people that get challenges each and every week, I don't want to see them as champs. So I guess I'm about to kind of contradict myself here, but I don't think you need it. But Stephanie Vaquero also, as you said, I don't think she's really young in there. She doesn't need the belt just yet. And I don't know, it adds some intrigue there because, it could turn into the whole, if Io is able to win without an interference by Asuka, for the belt there. Things like that, they're kind of frenemies at this moment. So makes sense there. But the storyline will really move along if Asuka does, as you said, cost Io that belt. Stephanie wins it. Then I think you got something spicy going on there.
And the other thing too is I think Kairi Sane's involvement in all of this is just kind of funny.
Yeah.
I don't know where it lands. I mean, I suppose at some point she's maybe turns on Asuka or it ends up attacking Io Sky and you have the betrayal there. But they're almost overplaying when Asuka walks out of the room. Does she then, or Kairi just kind of stands there awkwardly, usually like, I'm sorry. And then she yells at Kairi. And I think that's a good bit, but they're almost overdoing it to the point where like you're waiting for it and you're just like, all right, well, I don't know. I already saw it coming. I don't know. Maybe people are still kind of into that. I would say keep it up, but do it less every time that she leaves a room.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of funny too, when she like freaks out, when she doesn't want to be in the middle of it. So yeah, I understand that, but it's kind of like, when Io crashes out, I think that's hilarious as well. So yeah, they're, but it's the WWE, man. They get one thing that kind of gets hot for a second. They're gonna roll with it. That's gonna be Kairi Sane's character, until this feud's done. They're gonna eventually fight for the custody of Kairi Sane. Is what's gonna end up happening.
That sounds entertaining enough to me. Let's move on from one Judgment Day match to another involving a Judgment Day member, Finn Balor against Dragon Lee. Kind of have been back and forth, including the AAA matches that they've kind of had here. Balor dominated for most of the match. Dragon Lee mounted a bit of a comeback. It was kind of interesting more than anything in this match to follow the crowd because the crowd, they know Finn Balor is supposed to be a bad guy, but they kind of like him.
Yeah.
And then, Dragon Lee is supposed to be the good guy, but he hasn't won a whole lot. So it's kind of like, all right. And so it was kind of interesting. They kind of got behind Dragon Lee when he mounted a comeback. That was until Balor hit a drop kick and then the crowd goes crazy again. So they're not even sure who they're supposed to cheer for. I think they just kind of love Balor in general. So the crowd was back on Balor's side. He hits the coup de grace for the win. Interesting decision. Again, I think Dragon Lee much more needed this win. But I think it is one of those good reminders too of who Finn Balor is.
Oh yeah, for sure. We've been saying this for, pretty much the whole time we've been doing this show. Finn Balor is a main event player, should be a world champ, has the height, was the first ever Universal champ. WWE just, for some reason, just likes to, he takes pins, and he gets close, but just never there anymore. And so, the crowd they show it, they show, hey, we want Finn Balor to be the guy. And I'm going to also say this, at this moment, you have the Vision, right? And we kind of talk about the whole thing with Seth Rollins, they kind of recycle things. What more of a perfect world would it be? The Vision versus the Judgment Day. You got Finn Balor, Seth Rollins pitted against each other, which Seth Rollins is the one that, cost him that championship because he tore his ligament or something with his shoulder. I mean, hey, that would be really fun. So that's kind of just a booking there. But yeah, with Finn Balor, I think we kind of expect it. He looks cool. He has a look. He's kind of a guy that's trying to take the title away from Dom. It looks like all the time too. Great in the ring, but I mean, I think this year you can only say on a handful of times that he's, won a match in there. So, and he still has the crowd behind him.
And he's still a tag team champion.
Yeah.
So they just
you
don't defend
forget
it
about
often.
that, because they don't defend it. They kind of do this singles thing, or they're behind Dom, or the Judgment Day thing. But yeah, he's a tag team champ.
And it's still, I mean, for what they could have done with Finn Balor and Damian Priest compared to what happened, that was such a hot angle.
Yep.
And we can get to Damian later, but I don't think he's better off for never really. I mean, whatever conclusion they had to that, it was always other people in the match. It was never just Damian and Finn. You never got, Finn Balor to bring out his alter ego, the Demon. I mean, there was just that seemed. I don't know how they didn't hit that out of the park, but they never really did. And I don't know if either character's necessarily gone on to do better things since then. So it might have gotten stale. I mean, I think it was getting stale to see it over and over again. Somewhat similar to Rhea and Liv, but those things they relied on them for months of entertainment instead of one big blow off, which I thought would have been much better for each of them. But remember, Balor always said, "Just wait, I'll get you when you're least expecting it." So Balor might still attack Damian Priest out of nowhere at some point.
Well, I mean, if it's for a belt or anything like that, he's going to be waiting forever because at this point, Damian Priest is just as far down the totem pole as he's probably ever been. I mean, no disrespect to the feud he's in right now. They're both, I think, good wrestlers, but come on, you have to probably Google what is Damian Priest doing in the WWE right now. So if he's waiting, he's probably going to be 50 by the time, he gets his hands on him.
Yeah, we better, hopefully he's waiting for a better angle. If he pops out of, Aleister Black, I don't know how much that's going to help.
Yeah, not at
all. Although Aleister Black in the Judgment Day would be an interesting, he's almost too dark even for the Judgment Day.
Well, isn't that what people were kind of assuming was when he came back, like, oh, hey, Aleister Black could be a guy. There. Yeah, when they kicked Carlito, released Carlito. I mean, they never kicked him out. He just got released by the company. You're like, hey, you got Aleister Black, kind of waiting there. He's kind of the perfect fit, but nope. They went with Roxanne Perez and just kind of didn't add another guy. So
yeah. Roxanne Perez has been fantastic.
Oh, she's been great. Yeah. And you can't forget, she's essentially the daughter of CM Punk and AJ Lee. So, I mean,
she could factor into that eventually.
Yeah. Too. I mean, if she wasn't with the Judgment Day, she would fit right in with, the AJ Lee CM Punk angle. So I think that'd be amazing.
New Day and Grayson Waller. That's Big G. Going up against the War Raiders and Penta. First time for the War Raiders kind of back, in getting a TV spot, I think since WrestleMania pretty much when they lost the New Day. Of course, they had a months-long feud with the New Day before that. So this is not necessarily a fresh matchup. You just throw Penta and Big G, Grayson Waller into it. It was kind of a nice show for the War Raiders, though. They ended up kind of standing out in this match and ultimately get the win. Again, I think if you're looking for the long-term, I was going to say any sort of long-term, but they just kind of randomly paired the Warriors and Penta. So maybe we're getting Warriors and New Day again. I'm kind of confused about the direction of it all. Any excuse to get Penta on TV? I mean, that's kind of why I saw why they did it, but I'm not sure. It's
just so confusing because they have so many luchadors on their roster now, and they go with the War Raiders. I mean, Penta's a luchador. And we got to say this. Do you think Penta regrets signing with the WWE at this point? Because all I heard was this guy was, top of the luchador game, every promotion. It seems like he can't get a win. Now he's getting paired with the War Raiders, which, I mean, we've talked about the War Raiders, right? Like they're not doing anything really special either. And now, Grayson Waller, I don't know, man. This segment was, it's unfortunately the New Day has been bumped down to one of those segments where I'm not even interested in anymore. I know it's supposed to be comedy, but I fear Grayson Waller is going to be released. War Raiders might be released. And who knows how long Penta's, I know he just signed a contract, but if, I just don't know what they're doing with him anymore because he just keeps losing, and he's pairing with the War Raiders. I mean, I don't know how worse it can get from there.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, it's fascinating altogether to step back and look at it because WWE for years and years and years tried to find a replacement for Rey Mysterio and the popularity he brought from luchador and kind of the Mexican community, in Mexico altogether. And so, you go through the different names over the years that Sin Cara's and stuff that just never really worked out near to the level of Mysterio. And then they, I felt like for the first time ever, when he debuted and just the Star Factory felt immediately, I was like, Penta could be the answer.
Yeah.
Now he is 40 years old.
Yep.
So a long-term replacement for Ray, who by the way is still in WWE. So shout out to Ray, one of those long-term competitors. But again, they've just never really had somebody that has kind of been able to reach anywhere near the popularity Rey Mysterio has. And so you would think, just from the natural reaction fans had and the booking they had for Penta originally, you're thinking, man, they might really kind of understand what they've got their hands on. And now, again, I think it's fine. It's an excuse to get him on TV, but they got to get him on to something more interesting than the New Day.
Yeah, and when he first came on the scene, he was on a winning streak, went after that Intercontinental Championship. We were talking, hey, if it wasn't Dom, it was going to be Penta, right? That wins it. Now it comes to the point where if Penta's in a number one contenders match or fighting for the championship, you're like, Penta's, out of the four guys, Penta's probably taking that pin, because that's what's happening now. And yeah, it's such a shame, because man, that pop he first got, I didn't know who Penta was. I'm not going to lie. I looked up his videos, watched that match with Chelsea Green, kind of all that stuff. And I was like, man, this guy can really go. And, he's got the entrance, the slogan, all that stuff.
Fingers,
everything. And, he comes in, he botches a little bit in the Royal Rumble, but, other than that, I thought he's done great. He's okay on the mic, surprisingly for a luchador, he can, he talking, everything you said about the whole Rey Mysterio thing is correct. Man. And then he's now relegated to, like I said, he's the one taking the pins, and he was feuding with the Judgment Day. Not even with really Dom, he was just kind of there, just being a thorn in the side. That didn't really pay off. And now he's, in a feud essentially with Grayson Waller in the New Day. And at this point, like I said, I don't know how much lower you can get, other than maybe a feud with Carmelo Hayes. That's probably the bottom, on there. And it's really sad to see. So I hope they with them acquiring AAA and all that stuff, hopefully they start taking it a little bit more serious, or, they bring on a AAA show, which I think they're starting to do. Maybe Penta just needs to go and be kind of the guy there, before he comes back into, Raw or SmackDown.
And of course, he does have a real life little brother, and Ray Phoenix, who's also on the roster. That could have been, you pair them together, that would make some sense. They instead have put Phoenix with Andrade.
Yeah.
And they look like they had some heat on SmackDown, and then the WWE just kind of decided, we'll put a stop to that.
Yeah.
that seems to be working too much. And now I think Mello Don't Miz, it looks like, has an opportunity at the tag team titles. And so we'll kind of see a lot of different things they could do. This is where they're at now. We'll see if they've got a plan around the corner for that group. All right, let's go ahead and take a break. We've got still half a SmackDown to talk about, as well as Monday Night Raw. So we'll do that when we come back here on Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket.
At Valentino's, we're on a mission for tradition. On every slice, for every bite. Golden baked crust, cooked to perfection every time. Savory sweet sauce that's made from our own secret recipe. Loaded with the perfect amount of fresh toppings and melty mozzarella cheese. It's the tradition that Nebraskans have come to love. From game day to every day. Valentino's. Taste the tradition.
Give your furnace a break with the help of Heartland of Nebraska Windows. Heartland of Nebraska Windows offers a free estimate, full window replacements, all vinyl triple pane windows, and a lifetime warranty of everything, while still keeping their prices affordable. Sounds too good to be true, right? Heartland of Nebraska Windows is locally and family owned with their own team of installers. Give the window experts at Heartland of Nebraska Windows a call today at 402-430-3852 or visit them online at heartlandofnebraskawindows.com. Elevate your home or business with the help of Heartland of Nebraska Windows today.
A1 Automotive's second location is now open at 5110 State Hill Drive, just off of Yankee Hill Road. The new location continues to specialize in all makes and models and provides personalized service as they have for 15 years. With the school year here, A1 Automotive reminds you that college students get 10% off any service, and they offer free tire repair with a valid college ID. Schedule your appointment today at a1autolincoln.com and visit their new location in South Lincoln at 5110 State Hill Drive or downtown at 11th and L.
Have you been injured in an accident and don't know where to turn? You need an attorney you can trust to handle your case with professionalism and compassion. The attorneys at Liberty Law Group understand that a call to an attorney is a call for help. If you've been injured, we want to help you. Liberty Law's experienced attorneys are committed to the pursuit of justice for those injured. Call Liberty Law and find out how we can help you get the compensation you deserve. Call 877-42-LIBERTY. Call the trial attorneys you can trust. 877-42-LIBERTY.
Schwizo Construction is now hiring for skilled craftsmen, steel erectors, concrete workers, and general laborers. Schwizo Construction offers great benefits like premium wages, health and dental insurance, paid holidays and vacation, 401k with company match, life insurance, and disability insurance. They pride themselves on a legacy of 40 years built on integrity and trust. Joining their team means becoming part of a family that values hard work, dedication, and mutual respect. Apply today at schwizo.com. That's SCHWISOW.com.
Since 1983, Fast Mike's Rollouts have been a trusted and reliable company in Lincoln and the surrounding areas. Fast Mike's handles all sides of construction projects, home renovations, or big cleanouts. With the perfect size dumpster to fit your needs, Fast Mike's Rollouts will haul it all. With same-day delivery in Lincoln, affordable rates, and top-notch service, Fast Mike's Rollouts make cleanup quick and easy. Call now at 402-450-6828 or visit us online at fastmikesrollouts.com. Book your dumpster today. Fast Mike's Rollouts, cleanup made simple.
Are you looking for an exciting new way to put your skills to work? Explore new career options in the fintech industry at Currency, a Sandhills global company. We offer full-time positions in financial sales, compliance, operations, and other fields. We also offer a 4.5-day work week, an attractive benefits package, and opportunities for advancement. Put your motivation to work and grow with us at Currency. Visit gocurrency.com/careers to learn more.
Breaking here at the news desk. When you stack Allo Internet, DirecTV, and mobile, you can lock in your price for 2 years. Sources are confirming that when you stack Allo Internet, DirecTV, and mobile, your monthly price drops and you're locked in for 2 years. That's fiber fast internet, premium streaming TV, and reliable nationwide mobile coverage. And this just in, you must switch by Labor Day to secure that locked-in pricing for 2 years. Switch, stack, and save at allofiber.com/stack.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bockoven, on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We are back here on Nuclear Heat to talk some more pro wrestling here on 93.7 The Ticket. Thanks for joining us again. Usually 9 to 10 o'clock here on Sunday nights, but Ricky Simmons had some travel range, so we were able to jump up in the hour here and talk with you. We got about halfway through SmackDown in France, so we'll pick up in, I think, the most interesting part of, I keep saying SmackDown, Raw in France, which was Dominic Mysterio and AJ Styles for the Intercontinental title. As we know, this is a pro Dominic Mysterio show, though not a pro Dominic Mysterio station. DP, the boss of the station, not a big fan of Dirty Dom. I think a lot of it comes from the fact that he's been able to have some on-screen love affairs that make the typical WWE fan a little bit jealous. With Rhea Ripley, of course, and Liv Morgan now. So that's part of it. But I think obviously Dominic's done good with that Intercontinental title since winning it at WrestleMania. But AJ Styles now, I think his second attempt, you're thinking, man, it's going to be tough to continue to get over a legend like AJ Styles. Plus, Balor and McDonough were banned from ringside, so he wasn't going to get any help, we thought. Dom did attack AJ Styles during the intro, so certainly got the heel heat on him early. Also tried to get a leg up there. Crowd was hot for this match. Often for AJ Styles, the French crowd was singing long and often for AJ Styles. I don't know what they were saying, so I'm at least assuming it was for AJ Styles, but it seemed to be. Ultimately, had El Grande Americano sneak attack while the ref was distracted, and that cost Styles the win here as Mysterio then hit a frog splash to get the victory. All sorts of interesting kind of paths taken here. I think, Dom probably going to move on to his next challenger, whoever that might be. That's always going to be interesting. And it looks like, I think I saw on the card for Raw tomorrow night will be AJ Styles and El Grande Americano. So they're going to probably start to kind of get into something. And I think that's probably good for El Grande Americano to kind of, he's kind of been at this point just kind of jumping in through these Dominic Mysterio angles. I think it's good for him to kind of let's learn a little bit more about what this is all about. Now, if you remember, Dominic Mysterio sent Chad Gable to Mexico to go kind of figure out how to beat luchadors. El Grande Americano came out of that, but it appeared at that time that was Gable behind the mask. Gable got injured, so now it appears that one of my favorite pro wrestlers has gotten the match. You got his name? I can't
Ludwig Kaiser.
Ludwig Kaiser. He's one of my favorites, but I've been calling him El Grande Americano now for a while.
Yeah.
It kind of made me forget there for a second. Ludwig Kaiser appears to be behind the mask, and again, for his El Grande Americano iteration, he hasn't really had too many matches. I think he had one or maybe two matches now. But like to see kind of something start to come out of that. So I think that makes for an interesting next step in this, and of course gets AJ off of Dominic Mysterio's back.
Yeah, and also Ludwig Kaiser's name is also called the Ultimate Fumbler because there's a lot of. I think it's been confirmed that he got dumped by Tiffany Stratton.
I think that is true.
Yeah. So he's on TV more, but no longer with Tiffany Stratton. So I'll call him the Ultimate Fumbler from now on. But it's good. I thought this was fun. And it's interesting because with like the Grande Americano thing, it looks like the rest of the Judgment Day aren't really on the same page with Dom because they do the backstage segments and Dom will be talking to him a lot, and even Finn will kind of be like, hey, what are you doing? And Dom's like, hey, trust me, so they're kind of doing their thing there now too. So that's really interesting. But yeah, this will kind of be fresh here. I am curious too because the pairing of Dom and El Grande Americano, because I don't know how long Chad Gable will be out for, but they could have the most hilarious thing where they're trying to help Dom in some way, and you got two Grande Americanos coming out, and kind of like that Spider-Man thing. It's like, hey. And then they'll eventually fight for the name, the rights of El Grande Americano. And I think that could ultimately be kind of where that possibly ends there. But then, for Dominic Mysterio, I said it's not going to happen. But man, I know John Cena's got Brock Lesnar, but and all that stuff. But man, if John Cena versus Dominic Mysterio could go at it for that Intercontinental Championship. I think that could be a lot of fun.
I think it's so too, but instead I think we got the other side of that there on SmackDown. So I'm not sure if we're headed toward that. Speaking of that, we'll kind of get into that. CM Punk came out to the ring. This was on Raw before SmackDown, of course, to call out Seth Rollins. Instead, he got Becky Lynch. And the crowd was cheering for AJ Lee at this time. Everybody's waiting for the return of AJ Lee. Becky Lynch kind of slapped Punk around. And then Punk says that she will regret putting hands on him. My only problem with this is kind of the no sell that CM Punk is giving Becky Lynch's slaps. She's supposed to be a women's belt holder, and I get it. Everybody's kind of supposed to be tough here, but that is one thing I think has been a little bit of a misstep for WWE along the way here.
Yeah,
not that she's throwing everything into it. But.
No, but some of that first one, she looked like she really got him. But man, this one. Like, I get it. I get the setup. I understand why they're doing it, but this segment kind of annoys me. The whole keep smacking. She just keeps, what are you going to do? Ultimate. Of course, the WWE is not going to have a guy, we don't got Dolph Ziggler's or Randy Orton's around, who are going to super kick or, RKO somebody out there.
Baron Corbin hit her with the end of days before.
which was fun, to watch. And I'm not for, violence against, anything like that. Sure. But in a WWE setting, I've kind of been saying, hey, we should bring back intergender matches, things like that. Obviously, they're not going to show CM Punk's, response slugging, or anything like that. But,
it's done right. And there's
you don't want to see that, but you do want to see your go to sleep. You know what I mean? Like that. I think that'd be fun. But this segment did its job. But man, the build up. But on top of the no sells, Seth just looks like the ultimate coward behind his wife this whole time. And I love that they're adding Becky Lynch to it. But man, we talk about kind of the coward champion, things like that. The steps they're taking to do what they did on Friday just really, to me, makes Seth Rollins that championship is kind of go down a little bit.
Which is frustrating because he's such the opposite of that. He's such a fighting champion when he's a good guy. And they did this even when he originally won the championship and immediately kind of turned him into relying on all, the help, and he wouldn't win without it. And I agree with you. And Becky's character is very much in the same spot. And she herself will say she's one of the greatest women's fighters of all time. It's just something we'd never see Charlotte Flair do, so I agree with you. I don't know if it's always coming off the best. They're trying to set up the match, obviously. And cowardly heels always makes for the live crowd, to pick up on their body language and cues and all that. But I think both these characters are probably above that, especially. We've been wanting the Punk and Rollins thing for years and years outside of WWE. They've made it interesting when he returned and Rollins was upset. They've had these matches, but there's always somebody else involved.
Yeah.
And again, we're kind of getting into the same thing. Let's do an intergender match before we get Ultimate Punk and Rollins, fight. And maybe we will eventually get that. But sometimes, again, they just kind of book all these different things and never get to the original. Hey, I want to see that one-on-one. So we'll see if they get there. We did finish the night with Uso and LA Knight. Jey Uso, that is, in LA Knight against Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. Back and forth battle ends with Breaker hitting the spear for the win. So they did have a clear end here, which might have surprised some folks. The heels kept attacking after the match, and Jimmy Uso makes the save with a chair. Again, a little bit of a disconnect, at least for me. Jimmy Uso is not at this point. That's not, that's like a mid-show save, maybe. Where it's like, okay, yeah, bring the Usos back. Maybe this means the Usos will be put back together. I don't even know if that's best for Jey right now. Obviously, it might just be kind of a temporary alliance thing as well. He naturally makes sense that, if they need some more bodies, the good guys do. To go up against the Vision. But other than the clean win from the heels, which, I'm a heels guy, kind of like that. And I think Breaker and Bronson Reed are better off for that. Again, Uso, LA Knight already fighting for the big championships. Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed working toward that. So I thought that was good. But again, just the Jimmy Uso save doesn't do a whole lot for me.
Yeah, and this is where the storytelling gets confusing, because in one aspect you can see what they're setting up, because the reason Jey and Jimmy are kind of coming back is Roman Reigns, right? He got brutally attacked, his ankle injury. We know he's out to go film Street Fighter, things like that. But, then it could be awesome. Like, hey, Roman Reigns, the bloodline again versus the Vision, got, that'd be phenomenal. But I think most fans are more interested in the CM Punk Seth Rollins story. So it's like, that's what we're kind of saying is the Vision, the lackeys, I'd call the Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, are off doing their own thing. And then you got Seth Rollins doing his. That's kind of, it just doesn't make sense, because please don't give us Roman versus CM Punk versus Seth Rollins again with their lackey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We want a payoff of one or the other, so maybe, Royal Rumble, one of them happens, and then WrestleMania, the other one happens. Which, thinking about that, wow, we still got a ways to go, but you could fit those two storylines in there at some point. But I don't know. I know it's a while away, but I was kind of hoping CM Punk versus Seth Rollins would be, the WrestleMania headline. But it looks like they're kind of pushing forward with that. So now it's kind of got me thinking Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and you got the Usos there, and then you got the Vision. So I think that's possibly where they're going with that.
Yeah, it could be some good long-term storytelling. Hopefully, again, sometimes when you're kind of in the middle of it and they're, kind of dialing things up for one premium live event or the other, there is the long-term behind it. And so it might not always be the best for the most entertaining stuff of the week. And they didn't. SmackDown was a lot more entertaining. So let's get to that here. Let's go ahead and take a quick break on Nuclear Heat. We'll wrap up with SmackDown, which was the most exciting of the week. An open challenge, U.S. Open challenge between Sami and Cena, ended with Brock Lesnar interrupting. Then we did get the return of AJ Lee. So it's a very good, one of the best SmackDowns we've had recently. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket.
Bring new life to metal treasures with Kaiser Blasting and Coatings. From railings and fences to outdoor furniture and unique antiques, their expert team removes years of rust and weathering, then finishes each piece with a lasting powder coat. Trusted by industries across the region, now local homeowners and businesses can experience the same professional care. Visit KaiserBlasting.com or call 402-421-3559 to request your quote. Restore, protect, and make your metal shine like never before with the help of Kaiser Blasting and Coatings.
Gaina Trucking is hiring CDL Class A and B drivers. Their strong team culture makes it not a job, but a career. Gaina Trucking offers health, vision, and dental insurance, 401k with company match, an employee assistance program, and other bonus programs. Build a better career today with great team culture at Gaina Trucking. Learn more and apply today at GainaTrucking.com.
At Valentino's, we're on a mission for tradition. On every slice, for every bite. Golden baked crust, cooked to perfection every time. Savory sweet sauce that's made from our own secret recipe. Loaded with the perfect amount of fresh toppings and melty mozzarella cheese. It's the tradition that Nebraskans have come to love. From game day to every day. Valentino's. Taste the tradition.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bockoven on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We're back here live on Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket. We've got one more show to go over, and like we've been saying all show long, is this week's SmackDown was one of the best in quite a long time. A lot of that just centered on the opening that we had here, and of course the close as well. But SmackDown from Chicago, one of the best crowds that we have here within the United States. And John Cena had a lot of history there, whether it be with CM Punk or some of the other things that he's had over his career, big events that he had there. So that was kind of interesting. So Cena opened up for his final appearance on SmackDown and in Chicago. And the crowd was very much into this. Sami Zayn comes out, I think, meaning to be respectfully, offers a U.S. Open challenge to Cena, and they say they want to do it right here, right now. So that was the first match we got out of this. Of course, all of this very much, long-term storytelling. It was Sami Zayn's debut match was actually on a U.S. Open challenge that Cena had all those years ago. I more famously kind of think of Kevin Owens in that, but Sami Zayn was as well. And interesting, too, is that everybody was so excited for Cena that when Sami's music hit and when Sami got on the mic, there were a few boos there for Sammy Hogan. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, everybody... I just, nothing against Sami Zayn. I always say that, he's a good performer and everything, but the fatigue, man, he wins titles when he's probably not supposed to. He's in feuds he's not supposed to be in feuds with. He wins the wrong feuds, and then, I mean, he essentially interrupts John Cena's farewell. And I know it was, when you find out what it's for, you're like, okay, this could be fun, but they advertise it as John Cena's last SmackDown. He's not going to win that title. So it's another way to kind of essentially protect Sami Zayn in a way, and to say, hey, I was the last match John Cena had on SmackDown. I just know they're going to try to build on that. And, it was fine. It was fun. But yeah, the boos didn't catch me by surprise, because I think more and more, as we go on, we're going to see some more boos for Sami Zayn, because I think everybody sees, as Alexander mentioned last week, they're building up for that Saudi Arabia Royal Rumble. Sami Zayn's very popular over there. They're going for the money. So Sami's about to get, I'm going to say it in this way, the push of the gods, I would say. And being Cena's last match on SmackDown was probably the start of it.
Well, and it is interesting too, because Chicago, I mean, why people like those crowds is they are kind of smart crowds. They're not just clap for the good guy type of crowds, which most are, and that's fine. But that's when you kind of like to get to those specific cities that kind of are more like to bite back at some of the booking and all that. And I think that was kind of a little bit of what that was. We'll see. The match, as for what it was, obviously these guys are a little bit older than they once were for their original match, but it was still spectacular. And I just love John Cena's run here of basically responding to the "you can't wrestle" chants by basically doing everybody's finishing move and showing, hey, you know what? I could have done all this stuff all along. It's just, I'm I got my moves over, and that's why I do my moves. But it wasn't without Sammy's hits either. Blue Thunder Bomb, Haluva kicks, nothing could take Cena out. On Cena's side, GTS's, pop-up power bomb, spears, the angle slam. None of this could ultimately take Sammy down. So we had this just great heck of a match where if they allowed it to finish, you wouldn't know who was going to win, right? To your point, kind of expected because of that, maybe something to happen here. And the hope was maybe Brock Lesnar, but we haven't seen or heard from Brock. There was kind of some whisperings here recently. Well, it happened here. Cena hits the attitude adjustment from the middle rope. So him and Sammy are just completely out of gas. And then the music hits. Lesnar comes out. I like how even commentary said it. Sammy was just happened to be a bystander. So he got an F5, and then Cena was delivered with 2 F5s. To your point, though, earlier in the show, a little bit of something missing from the building, with Lesnar kind of having this big attack and ruining this great match. The reaction was maybe a little bit stunned and stuff, but it just felt like it was missing a little bit more excitement or something. Yeah, and you said it. Chicago's a smart crowd. Do you think it's due to the fact that maybe people don't want Brock Lesnar, back? I mean, he's been cleared, right, of everything, but I mean, his name was still thrown around and everything that happened. That's some pretty messed up stuff. And nothing from him, nothing like that. He made one appearance. Now he's made this appearance, and he, as you said, he kind of ruined what was turned out to be a great match in there. And I just think people are kind of torn from it on there. And, WWE is kind of essentially doing some things that are questionable, bringing Brock Lesnar back, kind of bringing politics in the WWE, a lot, things like that. So people are maybe a little bit more neutral when it comes to things like that. And, maybe they were starting to show it there. And he still looks like, absolutely ripped and all that. But I think part of it too, the Cowboy Brock thing, some people like it because it gives him some personality. He was always kind of just kind of behind Paul Heyman and just kind of the beast. But I think that's a little bit of it too. If the beast incarnate of old walks out, even if, he's a few years older, then I kind of understand what to expect. Cowboy Brock's is just a kind of a little bit of, he's still kind of trying to find what that is. Is it anything different than beast incarnate? It is the hair. The hair kills me. That I'm used to like that military type haircut. Oh yeah. But he's got like the man bun thing going on, the long, almost mullet, right? Yeah. Is kind of but I don't know. I guess I've seen Brock in it enough because that's like his real life, right? I think he is a cowboy, right? He owns ranches and things like that. When he's not out there just, doing what he does in the ring on there. So it could be. It's also, like you said, are we even going to see any interactions between him and Cena before, WrestlePalooza? Like we haven't, because we know with The Rock, kind of that stuff, they're willing to just drop things, on there. And, WrestlePalooza is what, like 20 days away, things like that. So I don't know. Or maybe everybody was just so stunned. There was no chance for a reaction because that was not the return we were waiting for on SmackDown. Well, and again, it could be just the fact that you're doing all these overseas crowds, and maybe so, you do a domestic crowd again, and you're not getting that crazy, the whole vibe of the building. They get to see this once a year or whatever, once every 5 years, whenever it comes around. That it's just kind of like, okay, there's Brock, but I don't know. I mean, it was still one of the biggest storylines. Don't want to like make it sound like there was crickets or anything. It just kind of felt like it could have used a little bit more. Of course, they followed it up with Damian Priest and Aleister Black. Black ultimately attacks Priest while he's entering. The medics tell Priest not to continue. Aleister Black, of course, keeps getting his chops in, and Damian Priest, he's kind of got the Damian Priest wobbly for a majority of this match. Priest is able to fight back at a certain point, but then Aleister Black uses the ref as a barricade / distraction to a degree. hits him with the black mass for the win. And Damian Priest does a good job of acting. He definitely didn't no sell it. He almost oversold it though, where Damian Priest is supposed to be this big guy that I fear. And he just looked really scared and uncertain in the ring, which again is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But again, with his character just having been where it has been to where it is now, it's good. Like they need, certainly in this feud, you need to get Aleister Black to a point where you feel like he can take out Damian Priest. But I don't know. It just, he looked a little bit too wobbly in my mind.
Yeah, he did. And I mean, you can't criticize every feud because not every feud can go like have a really deep meaning, right? This one just feels weird, right? They're two dark characters, as you said. They're both, I think, like 6'5" and 6'4". So they're, and I think they're both like karate experts.
Strikers,
yeah. So you would think this would be great, but you're right. Damian Priest just looked terrified. And I mean, other than the eye thing for Aleister Black, he's just a guy with the tattoos,
Yeah.
I mean, and I mean, Damian's, got that same look there, but yeah, I agree with that. My question is just what is this for? Where does this go? Other than, oh, I attacked you, I don't like you anymore, things like that. This one just doesn't, I don't know. Two great wrestlers. It just, I don't know. It just doesn't speak to me as much.
It's the difficulty of, hey, we're going to take this belt off of you. You're going to have to go find some feuds. I mean, for the longest time, I think he was helped, obviously, by being in the championship situation. I think it goes back to the Finn Balor thing where it's like, here's some real reason for these guys to hate. They never quite blew it up. But then, from that's what I'm naturally thinking of. Like, Damian Priest should still want to get his hands on Finn Balor. But now I'm supposed to believe he hates Aleister Black just as much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think a little bit is hurt from that. Quickly, we get to the U.S. title. Julia versus Mishin. Of course, Kiana James at ringside with Julia. She gets the win. Not much really to say there. Video package of Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton. But the end of the show was the interesting part. Rollins was up in the crowd. The man, Becky Lynch, makes her appearance and down to the ring. New entrance. I thought it was good. I think it's going to work out with her character pretty well. CM Punk comes out after Becky Lynch attacks every Chicago sports team, including the Bulls, with Kobe White sitting right at ringside. That was a little personal there, which I should say she gets after the Ozzy Osbourne stuff. Maybe it's not as personal as she has been. But anyway, she gets around to slapping Punk around again. Punk says, I have all these different people I could ask to come out in here and help me. But eventually kind of sets it up to like, hey, there's all these different names that could help me. But then AJ Lee's music hits. She comes out and attacks Becky, ending the show with AJ and Punk hugging for the finish, which obviously looks like our mixed tag team match is coming up. Again, Becky, one thing here I didn't like was that she looked terrified when AJ Lee's music hits. You're attacking that wife, the wife of, the husband of AJ Lee. So, I mean, this shouldn't have been as much as a prize. So I think they went a little bit far in that direction. And then again, to your point here with Chicago, AJ Lee was a star. Was she that big of a star, or is it kind of circumstantial to CM Punk that this is kind of a bigger deal? I think it kind of more is to the latter. And so, I don't know. It was a great return. It was kind of exciting, but like you're saying, maybe it didn't as the return we expected for weeks because they've been setting this up.
Yeah.
Maybe a little underwhelming for that expectation.
Yeah, I think it was. I'll say, this was a return. We've, outside of CM Punk himself, this was like the return. I mean, if you go through the list of like women's wrestlers outside of AJ Lee, we've seen them all. And she's been gone for over 10 years now, right? Like 11, I want to say. She left in her prime. She was like 27 years old, was the champion, I would say, on there. And, her husband comes back, we all kind of see it. We know the WWE, they don't always deliver on things like this. So to get her back, I thought was huge, but yeah, I was, I looked at it and, it went crazy, but, I think what went crazier, when her music hit, than that. But yeah, no, then I agree with you. Becky Lynch, that was horrible. She drops her title, leaves it there. I think AJ Lee even picked it up, and took it with her. So I don't know that. Yeah. Well, but then, after it all cleared down, you kind of look at it and you're like, there's no possible way that AJ Lee and CM Punk are going to lose, right? Because you can't bring her back. Then you think of it the other way. You've got the world heavyweight champ and the Intercontinental Women's champ. There's no way they're going to lose, right? So I feel like the WWE may have backed themselves in a corner here.
Well, there's always a surprise attack from somebody to divert the attention, so that
and then
help.
Ruins it all, right?
Right.
Just ruins the hype, ruins the buildup, ruins everything there. This has a chance to be great. And we'll see. I think they'll probably be on Raw, right? Because they're all Raw wrestlers.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see tomorrow night what kind of happens from there.
Yeah. I think they are all are expected to be on the card for this week as we look ahead. Again, I already mentioned AJ Styles and El Grande Americano. AJ Lee will appear tomorrow night. Sky and Bakir's contract signing, and also Lyra Valkyria back in action against Raquel Rodriguez. SmackDown a little bit more interesting. Tiffany Stratton and Jade Cargill rematch. Surprising to see there. Brock Lesnar's appearance is promised, as well as Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre. So looks like another week where SmackDown might have the edge.
Yeah. We'll see. And then on top of it, we don't even know. John Cena has 7 more appearances left.
Yeah.
No more on SmackDown. So don't know how many more on Raw we're going to see from him either.
Yeah, interesting stuff ahead of us. Again, we will count down to WrestlePalooza as our next premium live event for WWE. But that will wrap it up for Nuclear Heat. We'll be back next Sunday. Thanks for joining us. Tell your wrestling friends about us.